Heaven iTube. It is Abla, and today I wanted to talk about community, how to be a disciple in community, and this is really for everyone hoping to create spiritual community, searching for spiritual community, just everyone in general, and it was inspired because there's so many persons on this spiritual journey, spiritual awakening, and there's pockets of people in different places creating different things, making their own things, joining things. But really, we all need to come together. We don't need to always separate ourselves. We don't need to separate ourselves. We all need to come together in community, as long as we're all one, obviously. But we need to come together and not let our egos get in the way of that coming together. We need to not go towards separation, but come towards togetherness. That's what inspired it, is how to be a disciple and how that fosters togetherness. When we are all disciples under the same truth, that fosters togetherness, and we're not just all coming up with our own ideas from our own individual minds. So, I read a quote, and I have my book, my journal with me again. So I'm going to read the quote aloud, and then we can talk about it. And the quote is as follows. It says, "There is no teacher, no pupil. There is no guru, no master, no savior. You yourself are the teacher and the pupil. You are the leader. You are everything. And to understand, to understand, is to transform what is." That's the quote, word for word. And to further explain this quote is basically a dissolving duality, pretty much, and speaking about oneness. It's not to say there shouldn't be leaders or things like that. It's to dissolve the separation that person sees. It's to dissolve the so-called paradigm that a leader is above you, because we've been brainwashed to believe in governments, and they make us think the government is above us. So when we think of leadership, we think these persons have more power than us, but that's not true. It's not to discredit leadership. It's to discredit duality, because what we need is oneness. So your spiritual awakening is to be rooted in truth, in oneness, if that makes sense. Your spiritual awakening, quote unquote, is to be rooted in truth. And truth, I'm going to keep saying truth, and what I'm referring to is the high side, God. And the truth obviously is not subjective, not to change. The truth simply is. So the truth is not what you're inspired, what you see on the internet, what you see today, and change your mind about tomorrow. It's not changing. It is just oneness. It's God, the highest I, right? So you can be inspired by others, and you can pay homage to your teachers, like I said, but if you guys are truly on one accord, disciples of the same truth, that teacher is you, because you all want to embody God. I hope that's understood. So your spiritual awakening must be truly rooted, and your driving force must be truth. It must be a light, like indescribable light, truth that you cannot deny. That must be the driving force. It cannot just be like a phase or a season. To speak about myself, this truth, this light, this driving force is completely undeniable. It rules over your life, so to speak. It rules. It is the driving force. It's about what you need, not what you want. Because when we use our own individual minds, we think about what we want all the time. But this truth, this that we all must be disciples to, is what we need. It's not about our individual minds. So then you must use this strong drive of truth and light to motivate your every action and reaction. So first, this truth must be the roots of your quote-unquote spiritual awakening people speak about. It must be the root. And it must, secondly, motivate your every action and reaction. So you must be able to recognize this truth and then surrender to allow it to motivate your every action and reaction, your every breath, your every step, everything you do in your life. You must surrender to allow it to motivate your life. And this is what leads you to the right community. This is what makes you a disciple. You become a disciple to the truth when you surrender. And truth meaning the highest I, right? The truth, like I said, is not changing. It simply is. It simply is, period. So you become a disciple to the truth, and this leads you to community because you will commune with those who are also disciples to the truth, not disciples to ideas or opinions or different ways of living, different veganism or whatever paradigm. Disciples to the truth, period. When you surrender your life to that, you will commune with others who have surrendered their life to that truth. And you must trust yourself, trust in the highest I, and trust that you are being guided towards those who are disciples to that same truth. So now you are within a community that is full of mirrors of yourself, and you are all mirrors to the high side, because like I said, you guys have all chosen to surrender and become disciples to the truth, correct? So in these communities, obviously leadership is needed in communities. Leadership is needed in community. Leadership is needed in even interpersonal relationships, between two persons, between three persons. So of course, with a group of persons who want to be successful and want to fulfill the will, organization and leadership is needed. So this is where it gets kind of ego gets involved, because like I said, we were taught that leaders are almost better than us in a way. They have more power and they are to control us. That's what we're taught in the world, that leaders make rules and control us. But when you have community and righteous community, we do need leadership. And it's like, who gets to be the leader? Why are they the leader? And why can't it just be an oligarchy? It is an oligarchy, but there still needs to be leadership. And it's very common to hear that persons searching for community do not want to be up under anyone, up under any leader. Males don't want to be up under another male. Females don't want their male up under a male. Females don't want to be up under other females. Like, so many things. People don't want to be up under each other. I don't know where that's a worldly thought. We're not up under each other. Like I just said, we have been guided towards other disciples. So how could we be up under each other if we are all within the same thing? Does that make sense? I hope you're getting me. So it's often that we hear persons don't want to be up under each other. They don't want to be in a dictatorship, so to speak. Things of that sort, right? Which is very, it's the ego speaking, but it makes sense based on what the world has taught us. Of course, why would a man want to be up under another man or something of the sorts? It's logical based on the world's logic, which is backwards. So it's not logical. But the truth is that we mustn't be up under any man. You're right. We mustn't be up under any man. it's right, because we all must be within God. We're not to be up under man. We're to be within the high side, within truth. We don't need like the manliest leaders. We need godly leaders. That makes sense. So it becomes about the trust in that truth and the light that I spoke about in the beginning. That must be the root. Because if you have that root, then you will understand the leadership. If you have the root of the light, of the light and the truth, and you trust that you are a disciple, and you trust you've been guided to a community of other disciples, then you will know that you are all within God. The leader is not separate from you, not better or worse from you, right? When I see my leader, even as a female now speaking, because females are, it is male, female, right? And God, male, female. So when I see my leader, I see God. And when I see God, I see myself. Does that make sense? So when you remember that every breath, every move you make is rooted in that truth, in that light, that is what you need, and you don't let your individual wants get in the way of your surrender, then you are able to be, I don't want to use the word follower, you are able to be a community member. You are able to form righteous community in that way, and allowing leaders to lead, because you see the leader as yourself, and you trust in the leader to be a mirror of the truth that we all believe in, right? So like I said, when I see my leader, I see God. And when I see God, I see myself. So that quote I said in the beginning is to dissolve the whole duality thing. You know, the whole teacher-pupil thing. Not to dissolve leadership, not to not give homage and pay respects to those who guide us, but to dissolve the duality and move towards oneness. Because there's no duality in truth. There's no duality in truth. It's just oneness. So, simply, we choose our leaders based on their root in the light and in the truth, which we as well have. So if I'm part of an empire, so to speak, and there is an emperor, the emperor is not separate from myself, because I trust the emperor not to be separate from God, not to be separate from the high side. I trust that the emperor is not rising up in the rising and acting based on his own individualistic wants, acting on his own individualistic ideas and opinions. I trust that emperor, and we must all trust our leaders to be acting within the will of the highest I. That is why they are our leaders. The emperor is no better or worse, you know? The leader is guided by the same truth that we all believe in. So when you are a follower, when you are a disciple, you are not following that illusion of man, so to speak. If you have a leader, you are following the truth that is vested in man. I hope we're getting this. I hope you're with me. Right? So why do we believe and follow our preachers and our pastors and the saints and the Pope? Not because they are better or worse than us, not because they are higher or lower than us, but because we trust those religious figures, the Pope, preachers, you know, the religious figures, so to speak. We trust these persons, pastors, religious leaders, so to speak. Any leader, we trust that leader to be acting within the will of the same truth that we believe in, the same undeniable truth. Not because we trust that specific illusion of a person, although we do trust that they have the truth vested in them, but it is the truth, it is the highest I, it is the oneness that brings us together. And it is why we follow their words, their ideas, not their ideas, we follow their words, we follow their advice, and that is why they are our leaders. Leaders are trusted because we trust the highest I, right? So when you have a leader in community, when there are leaders in community, it's not that a male will be up under the rule of another male ever, or that a female will be under the rule of another it's not that a female will be, no, let me stick with that point. A male will never be up under the rule of another male, because like I said, do you not share the same truth, the same belief in the highest I? Are you not disciples communing together? How could you be up under another? Even if one is the so-called leader, you will never be up under each other because you are within the same will. And then females, we place trust in the males. Place trust in your husband, so to speak, that first you must be God's bride first, and then you will find your husband. You will not find your husband, you are bride, your husband. So we place trust in he who brings us our husbands, and that leads us to trust. That gives us, like, if you have trust in the highest I who brought you your husband, then you will always have trust in your husband and trust in the truth and the light that is vested in him. So you are not better or worse because you are all within the same will. You get it? It's not about this dual, like, power structure type of higher lower type of thing that they teach us in the world. It's not about control whatsoever. It's about all being within the same will, because we're all guided by the same truth. That should be our root. That's why I started with that. We should all have the same truth as our root that guides us, and that truth is undeniable and it is not subject to change. So males must be disciples to the truth first. Females, we must be disciples to the truth first, and also be God's bride first, the high side's bride first. So I hope this was understood. And to conclude, we know that righteous leaders, and that we need leaders, we do, for organization, just to be successful. We need leaders. We do not need anarchy. We need leadership, organization, structure, and order. The universe is order. Disorder is for the world. Chaos, that's for the world. So the universe has order, and we need order, which is why we have leaders. So righteous leaders are guided by the indisputable truth that is not simply their own mind. That's where people get confused, because you look at me and you think, say I am a leader. You see the emperor, and he's the leader. You think he's rising up and making his own decisions based on, like I said, opinions, ideas, his experience, whatever he wants. That's where we go wrong, because righteous leaders are guided by God's mind. It's not their mind, simply. It's God's mind, right? So when you follow leaders, so to speak, use the word follow. Are you following man? Are you up under man? Or are you following God? You can ask yourself that. And that's how you have righteous empires within the will of the highest side. And that's how leadership should work. When Jesus's disciples were following him, were they following Jesus, the carpenter, because they really think he's a great guy with cool ideas? Or were they following the truth that was vested in him? It's not about the single entity of a person, the illusion of a person that you see. It is about the truth and the light. It's about the highest I that you all share and follow, that is maybe vested in that person. Oop, pardon self. That may be vested in that person. Jesus's followers were they following man, or were they following truth? Simply, you can say they were following truth, obviously, and that's what we must do in spiritual community. We're all disciples, and we will all follow truth. And the leadership brings order. And the leadership is not about control, because we're all following the same truth. We're all living within the same truth, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about today, that it's really important for us to be able to relinquish our egos and realize that it is amazing to have community and empires, amazing to see all of these persons around you that are mirrors of you and mirrors of the highest I. And leadership brings order, and leaders even can be chosen and guide us, just as a husband might guide a wife who maybe your mind goes astray sometimes. Like I said, we have to actually surrender our wants and surrender to the needs that are within the will. We need to actually surrender, and sometimes that can be difficult, although it is simple, very simple. It can be difficult, so these leaders can actually guide us. And that's not about control. It's about guidance and making sure, keeping each other accountable, making sure we're all walking within the light, walking within the same truth. So when I read that quote in the beginning, it was to actually dissolve the duality that pollutes persons' minds to think that having leaders or having any type of leadership structure is to put one person above the other. It is not to put one person above the other. Leadership brings order and structure. However, the community, first and foremost, must be rooted in oneness and rooted in the truth. So at that point, there is no duality. The leader is you. When I see my leader, I see God. And when I see God, I see myself. And that's it. And you must have trust in the truth and faith in the truth to be righteously led and to yourself be a righteous leader, right? Well, I hope everyone picked up what I was bringing forth. I hope I shared that well, and I hope we can relinquish our egos and know that it's more important for us to come together than to think we need to create our own startups, communities, and things like that, because we don't want to be controlled by other persons. We need to come to realize that righteously, if we find and we trust that we're guided towards other disciples, then that will not happen. We will always be within the will. We will find those who are within the will. It's not about control. So we do need to come together in this way and have trust and have faith. And it's a conversation to be had because, like I said, the world has polluted our minds. But I hope everyone got this. And I hope everyone is trusting in the oneness and trusting in how they are being guided today and every day. All right, guide I.